Yeah, can't believe it's the first day of the month already. But yeah, the sun's sort of coming out, but it's still very cold. But I'm all right. I'm in good shape, I think.
Good news. Well, we are live, and we are live just a couple of minutes early. So I'm just going to give everybody a little chance to filter in because it's Friday and because, people might just be taking their time a little bit. And we'll start to watch as those numbers creep in just so we don't miss anything. But yeah, what's the weather like where you are, Chris?
Yesterday was like a culmination of like snow, sleet, sun. Today it's beautiful sunshine, but it's bloody freezing. So I might go out for a walk later, but then I might not. I might go to the gym instead. But yeah, it's kind of like it's warming up a little bit. What about you? Where are you?
So we're in Newcastle. It's just so bizarre. It's fluctuating from beautiful sunshine and blue skies to snow and sleet.
Yeah.
In like torrential hailstorms, like snowball hailstorms. And yeah, so it's just very odd, to be honest. We don't know whether we're coming or going.
How's your week been in general, though?
It has been good. It has been great. And it's Friday, so that's always good. And I love doing these on a Friday lunchtime because it's a great way to start to end the week with just really inspiring stories, people's journeys. So I'm really looking forward to sharing your story with everybody.
I'm really pleased and humbled you've asked me. I've been looking forward to it for quite a while now. So yeah, we're live now a little bit early, which is always good fun, isn't it?
It is, but I can see people are starting to creep in. So I'm just gonna start with our intro, and yeah, we'll wait for everybody to catch up before we get into your intro, the important stuff. So a big welcome to anybody who has joined us a moment early or two, the early birds on a Friday, which is what we like to see. For anybody who doesn't know me, I am Lisa, founder of Fabric Academy, which is a training academy which is empowering the most ambitious marketers to thrive through a variety of different methods and courses. Over the last 18 months or so, we have been bringing you a series of what we call Level Up webinars. And what we do is we go and connect with the very best of the best that we can find, who can help our marketing community level up. So we bring you their stories, their knowledge, their advice, their tips, their tricks, anything that they've learned along the way. And we always find the most amazing, inspiring guests. And today our guest is certainly no exception to that. So I'm very excited to be sharing Chris's story with you shortly. So this session is a topic that we've seen talked about a lot over the last 5 years. Business purpose has always been at the core of most conversations, but personal purpose is a relatively new topic in the sense where it's linked with business. And today's topic is all about purpose. So we're going to be talking in this webinar about both, about personal purpose and business purpose and how they are in fact linked. So today I'm going to be talking to Chris O'Connell, who is founder of Base Mindset, which is all about harnessing the power of purpose, both personally and professionally, to create a future that you absolutely love. Chris is an ex-recruitment business owner turned purpose-driven non-executive director, and he has coached businesses of all shapes and sizes to develop purpose-led organizations that perform. Chris champions authenticity and getting to the true core of what makes people and businesses tick. So just a little bit of housekeeping before I pass to Chris to tell us his story. So Chris and I are going to be chatting over as much as we possibly can in the next 30 minutes. I'm going to be asking Chris a ton of questions and we're going to get his insight and his story. And then I'm going to open the floor to you. So you are able to ask Chris some questions. If I could just ask that you pop any questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. Try and keep them out of the chat if possible, just so they don't get missed. I'll hopefully try and answer everybody's questions as we go. So keep them in the Q&A and Maddie will sort them ready for us when we finish up. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Lisa and Madeleine. I'm very happy, honoured and humbled to be here. So do you want me to start with my intro?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about your journey and your story, Chris.
Yeah, sure. So I've just got under 25, just under 25 years experience in the recruitment sector. So I started out as a quite young, naive, wet behind the ears, 21-year-old, 20, I'm 45 now, um, working for a big corporate recruiter who had 2,500 consultants worldwide. And very quickly I became the worldwide top biller, was billing eight or 900,000 pounds a year, and learned the art of recruitment and kind of loved it. Was there for 5 years, worked my way up from a sort of consultant to team leader to manager to director, and just knocked the doors off and just found recruitment a little bit of a calling. I'm very proud of that. So, being a top bidder for that size of company is no mean feat. But I left there, set up my own business in 2003. I got that to 100 staff, 3 offices, 30 million pounds annual turnover, 14 industry awards. So we won loads of awards for our profitability. I had 3 lunches with Richard Branson for his Virgin Fast Track Awards 3 times in a row. But we won loads of awards for our culture, which I'm really pleased about, in terms of with 3 Best Star 3 Company awards in a row. And that was about how we engendered and developed the right culture with our people, and also our customers as well. I'll delve into how I did that as well. But it was a brilliant business, and very, very proud of that. I then sold that through private equity, but the transaction went wrong. So I went from being I was Entrepreneur of the Year in the Southwest as well, a very kind of award-winning, successful entrepreneur, to having nothing. And it really knocked me for six. And I had some dark times, had some mental health problems, and it forced me to redefine and think about who I am as a person. And when this whole purpose thing came about. So I had to take 2 or 3 years out of the sector. I got divorced. I lost access to my children. I lost my home. I had some suicide attempts, and it was a very, very dark time. And then came back into the sector. Funnily enough, another coach invited me on another webinar, and he asked me to do a talk on what I wanted, and I chose to do a talk on vulnerability and leadership. And that was the pivot for me to come back. I'm now a seasoned NED. I've got numerous clients across the board. And I believe vulnerability, leadership, purpose, vision, and values is really, really important. And that's how I've built my new business now, which is servicing businesses and teaching them how to grow, but not just with numbers, but with purpose and all that kind of stuff. Also, a mental health first aider, mental health advocate, I'm a podcast host, dad to 3 boys, and I better shut up now. It's quite a long intro, wasn't it?
No, absolutely. I mean, God, what a story, Chris. Like, so inspirational that you managed to bounce back from something so traumatic. And thank you for sharing that with us and being so open and honest. I think, I'm still a huge advocate that mental health isn't talked about anywhere near enough, and it's certainly better than it's ever been before. But so many people will be able to relate to that story, and often in a professional sense still feel like it's a bit taboo to talk about mental health or depression, anxiety, panic attacks, something that is stopping you from being your best, that absolutely cannot be ignored and should not be ignored. So I think what you're doing is just so inspirational by bringing that to the forefront and talking about it so openly. So thank you for sharing that with us. So what a journey, where to start? So I guess many of our community are either current leaders or aspiring leaders. Lots of them are marketers who are really ambitious and want to be able to climb that career ladder. What is the importance of purpose leadership? And I mean, what does that even mean?
I think one of the main thing it does, it puts what you do into a wider context. So, for example, I've got lots of recruitment experience, but I don't believe I just place people. I shape and define people's careers and people's lives. Is that kind of thinking, that kind of mentality around understanding why we're doing what we're doing. And a lot of leaders sometimes don't necessarily know, or they go into their businesses with kind of a misconception around, it's going to be glamorous, it's going to be successful. I think it's understanding the problems that you're solving, but also the more holistic purpose of why you're doing it. And once you understand what your vision is and your values are, the people around you as well, they're bought into that. And what you don't want is people just coming every day and doing a job. You want them to understand the intrinsic reasons why they're doing the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it is that journey, isn't it? But it's not just the business journey in a sense of growth as you would normally see it, the number of you've got the number of offices, you've got how profitable you are, what's the turnover. It's the journey in terms of the story, the impact, the where you're going and why. And I mean, that's not always an easy thing to communicate, is it? And it's still not always communicated widely across businesses. I mean, how important is it for employees to be able to extract that information from their leadership team, and how do they go about doing that if it's not already there?
I think that the key to it is making it their vision, not your vision. So I always encourage my clients to, they ask me to come in and help them get more revenue, more headcount, more improve their operations, their marketing. I said, no, before we even do that, I want to understand what your vision, mission, and values are. And a lot of them don't know, or a lot of them got written on the wall or whatever. And it's kind of like, well, why don't we just think about really what your vision, mission, and purpose is, but also bring in some of your people, get them to be part of that as well. And I think that's really, really important. And not just having them written on the wall, but kind of living and breathing and basing your business decisions on your values as well. So if your values are honesty and integrity, when you make a decision, is it aligned to that value? If it's not, don't make that decision. So I think it's bringing people in, but asking yourself inward key questions. Why the hell am I doing what I'm doing? And a lot of people say I'm in it for the money, but actually it's not money. It's actually, why do you want the money? Well, because I want to provide for my family. Why do you want to provide for my family? Because I want them to feel comfortable. But is a nice car, a nice house, and a big business going to do that? What do they really want? They want your time. So the reason why you're building a business can be those kind of factors. And I think it's just like delving deep and just asking questions, getting feedback.
It's interesting because it's such a difficult thing sometimes to discover. And I think particularly in your early career, or for me, definitely, this is my experience, but defining both my business purpose and my personal purpose when I was a lot younger, I found really difficult. I probably got to the stage where you were in life and something happened, something quite big happened that made me reassess and then really realize the importance of purpose and actually what that meant to me. I guess if people are at early stages of their career, is there, how can they go about defining personal purpose? Is there a methodology to follow? How do you do this if you're not entirely sure?
I think you can, again, you ask yourself, you have to ask yourself some questions. It's got to come from within. So maybe ask yourself questions like, when have I been my most authentic? What does actually excite me? What do I really want to do? How can I serve others? When I get up into work, am I enjoying it? Yes or no? Why am I? I think it's that internal narrative, and I think what I do think as well, it evolves and shakes and changes, and sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes you make mistakes, and sometimes it is a journey. So I think it takes courage, it takes self-awareness, and depends what you want out of life, right? What is success? Success isn't necessarily the size of your house, watch, car. It's for me, it's personally, it's a legacy. It's the impact I leave on other people. It's those kind of things. It's like, as I've got older, having a 30 million pound business and being able to buy what the hell I wanted. And I had Range Rovers, houses, cars. I got to 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, 25 million. And every time I got there, it was like, oh, okay. So I'm nowhere near as wealthy now financially, but I'm much more healthy, and I'm healthy and wealthy in fulfillment and purpose and gratitude and that, because what I'm doing is impactful, but also I'm getting the money from that as well. So I think it comes with age a little bit as well. But yeah, I have to say this generation is probably way ahead of the previous generation. I think this generation and people these days, yeah, they want money, but actually they do want growth and fulfillment, these kind of things.
Yeah, and I think our younger generations coming up behind us are almost way more purpose driven than I've ever seen before. And there's almost a redesign of what life looks like, in a sense, isn't there? And that you don't have to conform to, the normal. You don't have to potentially be the same as this person to be successful. You don't have to dress this way or act this way or work 9 to 5 in an office this way. There is real, particularly now, probably more than when I was in this period of figuring out what I wanted. There are role models who are just real people who are hugely successful, as opposed to those unattainable role models that just look like you could never get there. And I guess it's trying to be really authentic in yourself that potentially helps you on that journey of knowing that you don't need to conform, maybe.
So I think one of the reasons why I pivoted quite well, particularly with my own personal brand on LinkedIn, I've got 40,000 connections. I get about 1 million views a month. That's all well and good, but I get lots of business from it. But the reason why I've done that is, like I did with my intro, very open, pretty vulnerable on myself. So back in the day, I used to put a suit on, become this stoic, ruthless kind of like person that wasn't me. I come home and kind of like, be in bits. And I think nowadays people, particularly in branding and marketing, that they don't want a corporate vanilla person with a suit. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with suit and ties, but people are buying from people. People want to be taken on a journey. So authenticity is exactly that, is not being something you're not. And I think that's what's worked for me. It's just being open and vulnerable. Because what you get in return, sorry to interrupt, is you get that back from, if you're a leader, you want your people to be telling you what's affecting them, what's negative, what's bad, as well as what's good. And the only way to do that is to diminish the fear and be a bit open and be a human being yourself.
Yeah, and just to ask you a slightly off-plan question, but around vulnerability, because I think this is a really interesting topic. Particularly for those who are in marketing leadership roles or just general leadership roles, have a team underneath them, or are, a big responsibility in the business. There is almost a responsibility that you have to, as a leader, be this, very happy, very positive, always know exactly what you're doing, like no wobbles type of role model.
Absolutely.
And to be strong for your team. But I think over recent years, it's become very apparent that actually that very much dehumanizes you as a person, really removes that emotional connection. I mean, what's your thought on that in terms of leadership and how vulnerable, and is there a balance there?
I think up until pretty recently, what worked then doesn't work now. So what I mean is, people went for the leader who was, motivational and didn't show any weakness and kind of push people hard. But I think with the advent of more social media, more video, COVID, I think compassion, empathy, vulnerability is now the new currency. It's not about, how great your business is, or I think human to human it's not really B2B anymore. I think it's H to H, it's human to human. And it's like Gary Vee is one of my guys that I kind of like. If you follow what he says and does, that's what he's all about. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'd sooner work for a leader that has compassion, empathy, understanding, vulnerability, and is a human being, because I'm more likely to want to open up and be myself and produce more for that sort of person as well. So I think some leaders who don't adapt to that change, if they don't adapt to that change, they're going to be left behind. So what works then doesn't work now. And I think, I'm not saying that we have to open up and pour our hearts out every time we meet a colleague, but I think yeah, be a human being.
Absolutely. Okay, so what steps can people take to make sure that they live their personal purpose every day?
I think it starts with self-care. I think it's like, for an example, this might sound strange to people. In my bedroom, I've got a whiteboard and it's got my values written on there. So every time I wake up, I see my values, like courage, honesty, and all this kind of stuff. So, and I've got some sayings on there like improve, not impress. So when I wake up, since I wake up, my brain is being pummeled with that kind of stuff. And I think it's about looking at the content that you absorb, the people you hang around with, so what you're doing outside of it. Are you exercising? So having morning routine, and everyone's different. So I'm not going to say my routine's the be all and end all for everyone else, but I walk into the mirror, it's a Mel Robbins thing, and I high five myself, and I connect with myself. So I think it's about kind of like that. And then, for me, understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not necessarily in it for the money now. I've already talked about that. I think it's just looking inward. Only you can decide why you're here on this planet. So I think it's consistency, it's dedication, it's a morning routine, it's checking in with yourself and getting feedback from others, and having people around you that also critical friends as well, that will tell you, actually, you've been a bit of a dick. Or I think that's important as well. I think there's a lot with social media. There's a lot of kind of stuff going on where you get likes for just putting a selfie out there, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but what's your intention by doing that? Are you seeking validation? It's all that kind of stuff. And I think it starts with accountability and awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that comment there about us surrounding yourself with really authentic people who will call you out. Sometimes I think the worst thing you can do is surround yourself with yes people who just will tell you what you want to hear all the time. And It's funny, I remember many years ago in my business, I brought in a senior leader, and we were very, we worked very well together, but she brought the biggest challenge to me that on a constant basis used to bring challenges to me in the business. It was a very different way for me. It was the first person that had ever come in and really challenged. And what she did was really pushed me to improve and be better. And that challenge was important, but it does require a moment of vulnerability to take a step back and not get defensive and not, close your mind off and really accept that challenge to grow. Yeah.
It's it's not easy. And I think a bit of humility is a bit of a superpower, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that a lack of purpose can have any sort of impact on mental health? You talked a little bit earlier that you didn't necessarily have that purpose piece defined in the early years, and it was just about growth and success and money in the materialistic form. Did that have an impact on your mental health at all, or?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think my example is a great example. I think if you haven't got a purpose or destination, you're kind of rudderless. It's a lack of identity. So, and I feel that can lead to kind of depression and negative thoughts around. So I'm getting up every day, I'm doing what I'm doing. I've got a nice car, I've got a nice watch, got a nice house, but actually it doesn't mean anything. So on the flip side, once you've defined what you're doing, and you get, for me, when you do that, the journey kind of takes care of the destination, and the destination almost doesn't matter. So yeah. I spent 99.9% of my time I was quite a boring guy back then, because if you ask me a question, it was just be about business. I lost relationships, I lost all sorts of stuff because I was just so focused on the business. And I think it's really important to take a step back, and you hear all the stories. I'm not unique. You hear all the stories of people that are really successful on the outside, and you ask them, actually they were really depressed because there was no fulfillment there. So I think it's fundamental to personal and also fundamental to business. It can work both ways. If you haven't got it, you can be depressed. If you have got it, you can really experience fulfillment and joy.
Yeah, interesting, really interesting. It's funny because the two things I've never seen linked before, but I think they're really, they're really powerful when together. And thinking about it in that way, in terms of how you support and secure your mental health and make sure that you're happy and healthy, is very much linked to where you're going and why you're doing it, as opposed to where for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. So just moving into business purpose for a little bit, because we will have lots on here who are marketers, who are working in businesses that may or may not have purpose defined, and it may or may not be authentic. So lack of purpose can, as we well know, impact talent retention. It can impact your customers and their acquisitions. And we know it's no use having a purpose that's there for a tick box reason. It's on the wall, but nobody knows it, nobody lives it, nobody breathes it. How can people go about checking that their business purpose is really authentic?
I think it's about getting feedback from your colleagues. I always encourage people to, tell me what my weaknesses are. I think it's getting feedback externally from your customers as well. And being vulnerable as well, and just encouraging the communication and go, look, actually, where are we, guys? And measuring it as well. So yes, you need to measure productivity and how many customers you've won and profit, but ultimately, if you get all that and you're not sort of steering in the right direction, I think it will fall down. So I think it's just weaving it into as part of your operational strategy, the purpose. We're not just checking our profit, we're checking our purpose, we're checking in on everything. I think it's just don't make it the inferior being, basically.
And is there a process that you go through to do that with businesses? Is there any tips that you can give our marketing community of things that you can work through to try and either delve in to see if that purpose is authentic or if it's been there for a tick box exercise? Or there will be businesses who are, marketers who are working for businesses that maybe haven't even communicated or maybe don't even have their purpose clear.
Yeah, I think often if you only speak to the people that you work with, you only can see, feel, and touch the people that you work, in the environment. So bringing in external people to ask those questions, give a different perspective is really, really important. I think I think it's asking the direct questions and say, so just tell me what your purpose is, what your vision is, and asking why. So integrity is important to you. Why is it important to you? Oh, because you want to deliver the best service. Why do you want to deliver the best service? Oh, because, and it's kind of like I think it's just treating it with that level of importance, and then so a purpose could be, we want to be the number one business in our field. That's not really a purpose, is it? For me, it's about, like, a teacher doesn't teach kids. A teacher helps and defines, is helping defining tomorrow's world. Or, is that kind of thinking about, actually, so what does a marketeer do? A marketeer is responsible for kind of shaping someone's purpose and brand and direction. It's a really kind of holistic view, isn't it? I think it's changing mindsets. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the teacher analogy is great, because most people don't go into teaching to, spend every day kind of lesson planning, all the marking they have to do. They go into it mostly with a bigger purpose, that they're looking to hopefully influence somebody's life for the better. And I guess it's really trying to pull that into the perspective when you're really defining a business purpose.
Yes. I think on that point as well, marketeers, this is where they can really help. Instead of helping with a particular campaign, is if you can help your clients really define their purpose and make their branding align to that purpose, it's just phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was just literally going to ask you how much of this falls within a marketer's remit. I mean, where do you think this sits? If we're talking about a decent sized business, 100+ employees, let's say.
I think particularly sales businesses, they really underestimate and belittle and demean the importance of marketing in the first place. I think they really do. And actually, me as an example, I used to be Mr. Outbound Sales, make 100 calls every day. Now I haven't made an outbound call in 3 years, and I'm all about the customer journey and inbound stuff. But I think that it's so important that a marketeer doesn't just deliver the brief, but looks at the client holistically. And if you can intrinsically understand and help shape the client's vision and values and purpose, then that's when you can start charging good money, and then you've got a great business that's built on purpose as well.
Yeah, and I guess there's lots of our marketers in our community who are in marketing roles, and will have a senior team in that business that they answer to. It takes a bit of confidence, doesn't it, to go to that senior team or the founder of that business, really question the why. That's not an easy task, and it does take some confidence, but it is a super important task, isn't it? Because if you're a marketer, it's very difficult to communicate to the outside world if you don't understand the why of the inside world.
I mean, I've turned, in my own role, I've turned customers away because I don't believe in their vision and values, or they believe they're living hand to mouth. They're focused on how much, what can I do to help them get more sales in the immediate future, and I think that's not sustainable. I think, no, let's strip it right back, go right back. What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? What is our purpose? And once you get that right, everything else falls into place. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and any tips for people around building that confidence? I mean, we often talk at Fabric about being armed with the right type of questions, but also being armed with the right type of response to, if you're challenged. So if your boss comes back and says, why do you want to know this? This isn't your remit. Also having that real evidence piece as to why you're requesting that information. Any other tips for our community in terms of how they could build a bit of confidence around going and challenging a senior team if they don't feel like the purpose is really, really defined?
Yeah, well, I think fortunately for me, I'm lucky because I've lived and breathed that very experience for me. But I think it's just it goes back to, what are your values? And if your own, as a marketer, if your values are integrity and all that kind of stuff, you go in there, and if you get knocked back, you get knocked back. And it's about, eventually, surely you only want to work with clients that want to be that way of thinking anyway. So for me, if clients are saying no to that or don't want it, they're not right for your business anyway. You've got to have that mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's presume an organization has its purpose and it's been tested and it's authentic and it's lived and breathed, and it's great. It's really doing the job it should. What are the next steps for a marketer? How does a marketer run with that? How do they use that?
Well, I think well, as a marketer, you'd execute that. You'd understand, then you understand maybe what the 3 kind of content pillars are, but you start to put it into action. So rather than just having the words on the paper, you delegate, and you put it in, you just action it on a consistent basis. Simple as that.
And once a business has that defined, how do they ensure it's alive? How do they keep, so it's all good and well at this point in time, this is what we're here for, this is why we're doing it, this is defined. But as a business grows and evolves and changes, the team can, the customers can, the products and services can. How can a business stay really true to that purpose and make sure it, it remains as authentic as it is when it's developed?
That any sort of major decision, particularly maybe on hiring or acquisitions or whatever it is, I think you revert back to, right, this decision, is it based on integrity? Is it based on our values? And if it is, great. If not, I think a lot of businesses put their values on the wall, and then just they'll do something that's completely out of, and it's like, how serious are you? So for me, it links back to you test it by saying, that's against our values, sorry. And people won't like that. Then
that's it. And I guess where do values and purpose sit? Are they one of the same thing? Do you, purpose, your roadmap, values is what you live and breathe by, but are they usually developed at the same time? Are they best developed at the same time?
I think so. I think in order to execute and deliver your purpose, you have to do that by your values. So values are like the fuel, and purpose is the car. And yeah, I think they are definitely intrinsically linked, without a doubt.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's been amazing, Chris. So interesting. I guess if you could summarize everything about purpose in kind of 3 points, 3 takeaways, the important things that people need to remember from this webinar or really go away and put it into action, what would they be?
I think what purpose does, it enables you to understand the wider context of why you're actually living and why you're actually doing what you're doing. And then once you've got that, you get the fulfillment, you get the joy, you get the profit, and you get the money as well. So it's kind of like, it's like the holy grail of life. So, but if you haven't got that, that's where resentment comes in, a lack of motivation, lack of results. So it's just really, really important. And I think also business and personal purpose is just as important. So I think, for me, it's probably the number one thing you need to have figured out before you do anything else.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open to some questions from our community here. So first of all, we've got, how can you spot a purpose that isn't authentic if you aren't working within the business? So if you're looking to join a company, if you're looking at potentially going into a role there, or potentially thinking about working with a business on the kind of flip side, how can you spot if purpose is not?
I love this. I mean, a good business should enable the interviewer or the prospective person to ask as many questions as they're asking themselves. And for me, if they're not willing to open up and ask questions, red flag. So I'd go in there and ask the question. So please tell me what your purpose is. Why have you joined? Why have people left? What's good about it? What's bad about it? And for me, that's it. And if you get some good answers, great. If people are not willing to even answer the questions, I wouldn't join that business, because often what's said in an interview isn't always carried out when you get the job as well. So I would ask, am I able to speak to some existing employees, even speak to some ex-employees as well, because I think there's a lot of self-entitlement in employers, where they used to expect employees to jump how high for them and you work for me kind of thing. And I think that's changing a little bit, and the shoe's on the other foot, where the employees can, they can not dictate, but they've got a bit more power, and rightly so, so asking the right questions.
Yeah, I mean, an employee and an employer should have a very equal relationship, shouldn't they? In terms of, the fit. It's like a relationship to a degree, that the fit has to be right for both, and the values and the purpose have to be aligned for both for maximum fulfillment. And I absolutely love that. I mean, of all the years I've been interviewing, never once has anybody asked me, what is your purpose? What are your values? And I would absolutely love that from an interviewee. I would really respect that. I would love to talk about the journey. And we do talk about the journey when we're interviewing, but I've never been challenged on it. And I think that's a really important point.
100%. For me, if I was interviewing as well, I don't necessarily make decisions based on the answers they give. I do to an extent, but also I base decisions on what questions they ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's great advice. And again, it takes a bit of confidence, doesn't it? It does
Yeah.
take that little bit of extra confidence to feel like you're able to ask those questions. But the reaction from the employer should give the employee, the potential employee, a really good indication of how open they are and how open they are to challenge new ideas, diverse thinking. So there's lots of pros to that approach, I think. Okay, question here from Sarah. So any book recommendations on purpose that have changed your outlook?
Oh God, Think Like a Monk's a good one with Jay Shetty. God, you've got to put me on the spot now. I'm reading Atomic Habits. I'm reading. I'm actually going to check my Audible. I've got like 6 or 7 different things going on at the moment.
Yeah, I've just literally started Atomic Habits actually.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's have a look. I've gone doing yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, Jay Shetty, I like all the Gary Vee stuff, but I think Like a Monk's quite good because it kind of like it's all about purpose. It's all about fulfillment and why and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely great. Thank you. Okay, question here from David. So how to integrate personal purpose into life outside of work?
Yeah, I mean, my business is called Base Mindset, and there's 6 facets, and one of them's business, one of them's personal development, one of them's purpose, one of them's relationships. So for me, it's about understanding the importance of what you're doing outside of work. So is the question? Sorry, is the question? What's the question?
Yeah, how to make I guess this is about life fulfillment maybe, isn't it? How to make sure that outside of work you're driven by purpose as much as inside of work.
Yeah, I think for me it's about growth. So if I'm not growing personally, mentally, emotionally, I feel like I'm in trouble. So, and your business isn't the be all and end all of your life, right? I think the whole work-life balance thing, it's not really real. It's life. So, don't put all your eggs into the work basket, because you might be really, really successful at work, but what is success if you're coming home at 8 o'clock and not seeing your wife or your girlfriend or your husband and not seeing your kids? So I think it's taking a step back and going, what's important to me, and journaling and go, how much time have I spent with my kids, how much personal development have I done? I think it's your purpose shouldn't be related just to work. Your purpose is your entire life. So for me, it's about quality time with my children. It's the legacy I leave on others. It's being success isn't how well I'm doing in business. Success is how I feel about myself and how others feel about me.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I think that's great. Question here from Tom. So, and this is really interesting because we are talking about personal branding on almost every webinar now, regardless of what the topic is. And it's creeping in here as well, but it's so pertinent at the moment. So how important is it to communicate your purpose online through your personal brand?
Oh, so important. It goes back to that authenticity and vulnerability thing as well. I think myself and most of my clients and a lot of people now, like one person bands or 3 or 4 people in a business, they're opening up huge, massive accounts because they're being themselves and they're talking about stuff that is human led. And so I think that's what people want. They want to be on a journey, they want to resonate with you, they want it to be relatable. It's not like, look at my business, look what we can deliver. And people don't want that anymore. So I think it's fundamental. I think 10 years ago, no. And this is where I think personal branding it's more important than a CV is becoming redundant as well now, isn't it? It's so I think if you're worried, if you're shying away from doing videos, if you're shying away from doing stuff on LinkedIn, the only way to do it is to start. And when I still get nervous doing these things now, but you're better off giving it a go than people aren't just going to come to you if you haven't got a photo, if you haven't got, your personal brand is basically your shop window. But it takes time. But once you get it right, people come to you and that's what you want. Why constantly have to make cold calls? Why constantly have to kind of introduce yourself? So it's taken me a while, but I'm at a point now where when a client a new client contacts me, they don't have to ask me any questions because they know all about me. They know what I can deliver. They know my weakness. They know my vulnerability, and like they're kind of like saying, "When can you start, Chris?"
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great way for building connections, isn't it? And
Mm.
I guess that's a really good point, because Tom's also asked, how can you get over the fear of putting yourself out there? And I mean, how did you go about that? How did you, there is the nerves, there is the, resilience, and the, you've got to do it, but how did you go about getting over that fear?
As an example, I think on LinkedIn, what I started to do was comment on other people's posts. So that was a little kind of easy step, and kind of like, oh, I've got someone come back to me. And then got a couple of texts out that they went okay, and then did a video. I think it was just trial and error, and kind of like just trying to befriend people as well. So be kind, and kind of like showcase your insight, and just try and connect with people, and be a bit proactive, and just break it down and say, look, if today I can speak to 5 people, or send a message to 5 people, and then tomorrow I'll do 6, tomorrow I'll do 7, and then next week I'll do a video, and kind of just don't see it as a big mountain.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. It's going to take time, and there's going to be hard knocks. But believe me, there's not anyone out there that doesn't get fearful of it. It's like with anything new. And also, you can follow certain people, can't you? You follow certain hashtags as well. So look at your feed. So is your news feed on whatever platform you're on? Is it benefiting you? Is it educational? What are you interested? Are you interested in leadership growth? Search for that and connect with people with those criteria. Then you're absorbing that, and it's kind of, you're building that kind of community as well. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Chris, there's been so much amazing advice there. Thank you so much. I mean, I've personally taken so much away from that. And I think just opening up and talking about your story is, it's changing people's lives. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much.
You've done a phenomenal job. And if anybody wants to follow Chris, they can obviously find Chris on LinkedIn. He's very active there.
Yeah.
And if there's any questions that we haven't got to, obviously, I'm sure Chris would be happy to answer those if you were to reach out. But yeah, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And yeah, we'll catch up soon, Chris. Take care.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who listened. I really enjoyed that. Really a great pleasure.
Great. Take care, Chris. Thanks again. Bye now. Bye-bye.